Welcome to this edition of the Million Dollar Mastermind podcast. This is where we pick the brains of high achievers from all walks of life and get their hard-earned, real-world insights on winning. I'm your host, Larry Weidel. Let me disabuse people of this idea that the new generation is lazy. Of course, they're lazy kids out there, but they always have been. I mean, there's a thing you can read where this essay where the youth of today, are basically slackers and don't take anything serious and, dragging society down, and was written by Socrates. Okay. So, the youth have always been accused of being sorry, but there are some unbelievable young people out there coming up in just about every company I look at. So anybody who's hanging on to that idea, let it go, because there's some really sharp people out there, and I'm sure you run into them.
Let me add something to that, Larry. So, there's I read about this before. World War I, Germany, a German general was saying this. He's like, bring me the soldiers that not necessarily the ones that work hard, but are like average intelligence, but you want the ones that are lazy and smart. And I think even Bill Gates said this before too. The truly deadly people are the ones that are lazy and smart, because they're going to figure things out and they're going to figure out shortcuts.
Yeah. Reminds me of our mantra we had when I was at Georgia Tech. We're casting forward saying we're looking for jobs. And mine was, I want one where you go to work at 11 a.m., you have lunch, you have a 2-hour lunch at 12, then you come back in for a nap in the afternoon and then go home. I was never impressed by the people with that are working the 100-hour work weeks, which we all have. I've done that. That doesn't impress me. In fact, anybody gets up and said in a conference or someone speaking said, you got to work hard. It's like, what are you, an idiot? Of course, you think you're giving news to people. You got to work hard. But the people I'm impressed by is the ones who can get tons of it done, and they don't seem to be breaking a sweat, because those are the people that are going to keep doing it, and they've got even bigger capacity in the future. So I've always had the same viewpoint, Eric. When you're coming up now, you're learning things, and you're excited, but you're working with people. What are you learning about? Were all of your people experiences positive, coming up, or did you go through some things? When I was my first job out of tech, I went to work for. I learned about people. In fact, I learned what a manic depressive personality was, and not a fun experience. I learned that by having acid in my stomach every time I got around my boss. And you you learn to survive in those situations. Did you? I'm sure most all your experiences were positive, but did you learn about some life lessons working with people along the way?
Absolutely. And I think anybody that says they haven't is probably, their brain's probably not very active. And I say that in a kind way, because, sometimes medical conditions, right? So
Right.
I would just say, yeah, for the most part, I believe that the vast majority of people are kind, and, everyone's going through something. But yeah, absolutely. I've learned lessons, not even just from other people, working with other people, but also myself, being the quote unquote boss, right? Like that's still a weird term to me.
Yeah.
But the main thing I've learned is that every personality is different. And also, not only just Larry, there's like not just one version of you, there's millions of versions of you, or hundreds of thousands of versions of you, because you've met that many people.
Right.
And so, people are getting you at different times. You might be in a different mood, different point in your career. And so, I've learned that all I can do on my end is try to put my best foot forward, and that I'm going to be wrong sometimes. And that's okay, because we're human.
Yeah. And so did you have any experiences that really stung early in your career? the old football coach at Ohio State, Woody Hayes, said, "There's nothing that sobers you up quite like going out in a game and getting your head knocked off and beat by 3 or 4 touchdowns. There's nothing quite so sobering as going through one of those experiences." But did you have any kind of really sobering type experience like that where things did not work out the way you expected but a great learning experience?
Yeah, I mean, anybody that says they haven't really been through much, just being honest. But one of the ones that I can recall earlier in my career was when I was around, I think it was 25 or so. That was when I was leading marketing at this startup. And a month into the job, the CEO pulled me aside and said, "Hey, if you don't hit numbers this month, we're going to have to let you go." And that was a crossroads in my career where it's like, on one side, it's like I can be like, are you freaking kidding me? Like I just got here. Like, are you dumb? Like it takes time to figure this stuff out. And then the other side is like, well, like you can figure it out. And it'll be a great lesson. It'll be a great story. And so what did I do exactly? Okay, you're going to let me go. I bet the entire company on YouTube advertising, and that skyrocketed us. It skyrocketed we were acquiring way more users, like 10 times the amount of users that we were acquiring before. And that led to us raising our Series B and the company continuing to grow. So that was one instance. And then I'll share one more real quick. It's, when I took over the ad agency Single Grain when I was 27, it might sound amazing, but no, I actually made the company go from bad to worse because when I came into the company, I thought my poo-poo didn't stink because I worked in tech. And
Right.
I didn't try to build any rapport with anybody. I read a book called Let My People Go Surfing from the Patagonia co-founder, which is a great book, by the way. But then I took it too literally. I was like, oh yeah, let my people go surfing. I stopped showing up to the office. And what ended up happening next is everything fell down and we dropped all the way down to one employee. And my outside accounting firm called me and said, "Hey, I think it's time to shut it down." And that was another moment. So
Yeah. And so as you move on, uh, we learn some of these things you just have to go through them. And either you're going to come up with the idea, the half-baked idea, or someone's going to try and talk you into it. So a lot of these things, and let's face it, there may be a time where it's smart for you not to go to the office, and I know I switched gears back in '83, where every time I went to the office, everybody was like, it seemed like when I pulled into the parking lot, 2 levels down, and we were up on the 5th floor. By the time I would pulled into and the car came to a stop in the parking lot, people would rush out of air and come to me with problems. What do I do about this? What do I do with that? I've got someone over here I want you to talk to. How do we handle this? And they're just all over me. And so, you get there in the morning, and by the time you raised your head, you notice it's like 8 o'clock at night and you got nothing done that you want to do. So I shifted at that point. I shifted where I made a decision. I'm never in the office unless it's a meeting. And I had my secretary bring all the mail and meet me over at the breakfast place. And she would shove, if there was something, she would tell me what she needed to tell me. If it was something for me to sign, she would push it across the table to me. I'd sign it and I'd push it back, but I didn't have any paper around me. But that's the only way I could stay in control of my life. So there are times where don't go to the office is the right thing, but not without having controls in place and rendezvous. And but you have to go through that and learn what's going to work for you. And I noticed there's are those games behind you on your shelf? Or are those books? Or
those would be books.
Okay, books. Okay, I can't tell. And so you must be quite a reader, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, well, going back to your point real quick, it's you eventually you learn how to delegate, and eventually you learn how to coach people. It's like instead of bringing all the problems to you, what would you do about it? And if they can't figure it out, you probably have the wrong person, right? But I digress. So these are all books back here. I actually have and I have these 2 statues of Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger over here that I'm supposed to put back up. But I one of my core values is,
where do you get those statues, by the way?
one of my friends sells them for they're like $1,500 each. But
Really?
if you just type in Warren Buffett bronze bust, you should be able to find it.
Okay,
And I
maybe
like
we
it.
can sell some of those. That sounds like a pretty cool idea.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it reminds me to be patient and and have fun, right? Because they're in their 90s and they're having fun. So
and
I
to
think
drink and to drink Coca-Cola and have
McDonald's.
burgers. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so these books back here, I mean, one of my core values is improvement obsession. And so that's literally why I wrote a book called Leveling Up. And, I don't look at these books as my coach would ask me this. He's like, he's trying to make a point about me loving to learn. He's like, yeah, like I'm sure, like, you have the library back and I'm sure you've read everything. I was like, absolutely not. Because I look at each of these books as reference points. And so each chapter is a blog post. And when I need to
Right.
call on this knowledge, I can call on it. It's not a badge of honor to say, oh, you've read everything here. Like that to me is actually very inefficient. So,
Yeah.
but that's why I have the books.
Yeah. And it's reference. And the thing is that you can't remember all the stuff anyway. I mean, you and I have read books and we went back later and it's all new to us, So uh the that's where Bob Dylan got a lot of the lyrics from in the 60s. He got over in what Allen Ginsberg, whoever the poet was, he let him into his house, became buddies, and he could stay there when Ginsberg was out of town. And he would just flip through things. He said, things got better when I realized you didn't have to read the whole thing. And so
Yep.
he flipped through, he'd see lines. He was in the storytelling thing and looking for lyrics and things like that. So it's like a comedian, looking for punchlines and things like that. But a pretty smart way of accumulating a lot of material that he turned into some incredible songs. But that's what the idea is: feed your brain, stay stimulated. We only have 24 hours in the day, and as you came up through this thing, how important was it for you, or did you think, let's just say gaming? How driven are gamers? I mean, did you, to you run up those totals and things like that? Is that just as important in gaming as it is in sports?
Yeah. So I don't really look at the score. And so there's a couple of different ways to look at this. But one, I think what you're comparing to is, for example, if you're playing football or if you're playing basketball, at the very end of it, you have one team that wins. It's a 0-sum game. It's the same thing with competitive gaming too. You have teams 5-on-5, and at the very end, you have a winner versus a loser. And so that's how you would look at it. And so I think, sorry, just how would you? Could you rephrase your question again? I just
I'm
want to
wondering
make sure.
about the competition and the desire to work your way up to the top and to
Yep.
be known as top in your field or somebody who's really worth paying attention to.
If you want to be the best in any game, you have to play with the best people. You have to be a part of a team, and the team also has to be really motivated too. It's just like when you go work for like a Google or Amazon or something like that. They have certain standards and they have certain values. And so when I remember I used to play this game called World of Warcraft, we had a team of 40 of us, and our guild leader, who's basically our CEO, he would wake everyone up, call everyone up at 3 a.m. Okay, so that's how competitive we were. When, let's say, something popped up where like there's a monster, like a boss that popped up at 3 a.m., he would be monitoring it. Okay, he'd call everyone on their cell phones. We'd all wake up and we get in and we'd fight. And there would be one of our rival teams that was against us. They would be there waiting to fight us, right? And we'd have to kill them first, over and over and over. And then once they gave up, then we'd go kill the boss. So when it was all said and done, maybe we're done at 5 or 6 a.m. But that's a level of competitiveness. That's a level of drive that you need to win sometimes when you're playing at the top.
The word obsession comes in, which if you're going, if you're going to build anything special, you're going to turn into anything special. You're going to have to go through at least a phase where you're a monomaniac on a mission.
You gotta do unreasonable things to get unreasonable results.
Right. And the key word is results. That's how you look at it. And that's what I like about the gaming thing is you're looking for results. And, nobody comes in and for many of the kids I've seen learning how to play, games, they're not taking a 6-month course in how to master the newest game that came out. They get some of the basics and then they're starting to play and advance that way. They learn by doing. And really, that's how, other than the fundamentals, I've always said that you go to greatness, you got to have fundamentals, but you go to greatness by using the fundamentals. You learn how those fundamentals work in ways that maybe other people haven't figured out yet, and maybe weren't obvious to you when you started, but you started with the fundamentals, and then magic started to happen. But the magic can't happen out of thin air. It has to be by some kind of design. And what I like about your book, the title, I haven't read the book. I just saw the book reading up on your bio, is the title, Leveling Up basically, the way I explained it, and I think we're coming at it from the same way, is people like, you can never guarantee success. But what I tell people is you can change the odds, and you can start stacking the odds from against you to in your favor, to where you can put the odds where you're never guaranteed success, but it becomes almost inevitable. And this leveling up thing is what I like about it, Eric, and that what you've tapped into is you can control your situation. You can change those odds. You can increase, your opportunities or likelihood of being successful by taking action. And that's what it sounded like you were getting at in that title and in your book. Is that correct? Would that be right?
Yeah. So the book it's really an introduction to personal growth and habit building for gamers or for people that have a gaming mindset. And so the one thing you can control, or one of the few things you can control in your life, are the inputs. And so you choose when to go to bed. You choose if you want to eat healthy. You choose whether you want to train or not. And a lot of those inputs are within your control. And if you keep compounding those inputs over time, then it'd be kind of crazy to assume that you wouldn't have at least results that you're happy with.
Right.
So but most people give up too easily. They stop. And so that's all it is. It's really just habit building and habit stacking.
Thanks for listening to the Million Dollar Mastermind. If you felt there were any valuable takeaways from this episode, please take a minute and leave us a 5-star review. Your feedback is important and really helps us get the word out to a wider audience. Remember, we have a valuable webinar that is absolutely free. Register for it right now at weidelonwinning.com. Thanks for listening.